Hello friends, and welcome back to week 2 of the Press Box Preview, brought to you by KRVN 93.1 The River and Cami Country Legends. He's Scott Foster, I'm Tyler Cavali, and thanks again for tuning in. Well, Scott, any surprises from week 1, from the first week of finally high school football action?
Well, you know, the guys at the beginning, they start looking at teams and you think you know what a team's going to be like, and what we found out is we're not really sure. We don't know. We're not experts. I don't know that you would call major surprises, but I think some teams got an idea of who they were. I think we're going to know better after this week.
And I think one game that caught my attention at least a little bit, and some other people as well, is Hastings going down to McCook and beating McCook at home. Because we all know how good McCook is, but Hastings, there's been some rumbling the last couple of years of them being progressively good as well.
Well, Hastings has been a sleeping giant for a long time. Another big game in that area, Adams Central beating Aurora like they did. Of course, Aurora defending state champion, lost a lot of people, but Adams Central took them apart.
Well, this week we have 2 games on 880 KRVN. Cozad will take on a rival Gothenburg. Meanwhile, on Cami Country Legends, it'll be Lexington traveling out east to Schuyler. As we start with our first game over on 880 KRVN, it is Cozad and Gothenburg, and Cozad 0-1 on the season after falling to Orr 28-0. And Scott, this was a game where Cozad trying to find their offensive rhythm a little bit. They have Nolan Watovic, who was a fresh new quarterback at the quarterback position. They did move the ball. They did get within the 10-yard line 3 different times, obviously coming away with no points. But it was nice to see some positive movement, even though they did turn the ball over several times. But the offense did charge down the field.
Yeah, they had some red zone blues. You know, they just were not able to score. And talking to Coach Cargill after the game, he said one of the things that Ord did such a good job was they were rotating their front 4 and keeping them fresh. And he said that just really caused them some problems. And he said, you know, we gave that game away. Ord's good. I mean, they're defending state runner-up. They're going to be good this year. They got a big, huge defensive and offensive line. But Coach Cargill really felt that they gave that one away.
Well, some positive notes for Cozad was running back Matthew Schuster. He looked sharp on last week's game, 128 yards on the ground on 28 carries, and that's going to be a positive sign for the Haymakers.
And they need him to do that. They just absolutely have to have him to do that this year, be a consistent runner. He's lacked some consistency at times throughout his career. Breaking in Nolan Watovic, who may be the best athlete on the field, he's going to get better. But they need that running game, and especially Matthew Schuster, to have good games, and I think he will.
And I think on the defensive end, even though they gave up 28 points, they made some good stops. They did force 1 turnover. Jacob Weatherly finished with 8 tackles and 1 interception. But how about Nathan Breon? I believe we mentioned him in last week's show. He was stout on the defensive side of the football. He had 9 tackles, and he certainly made his presence known.
Yeah, Coach Cargill was a little disappointed in their tackling. He thought they could do a little bit better job of tackling, and I'm sure this week they're working on that a lot.
And their opponent coming up on Friday night is the Gothenburg Swedes. Gothenburg got off to a hot start against Chase County last Friday, winning 27-6, the final score in that one. That jumped out to an early lead, scoring 3 times in the first half. And they're doing all this early on, at least last week, without some key players.
Yeah, their top 3 running backs couldn't play and didn't play until at least the second half when Owen Guykin played a little bit. So they started 2 sophomores back there, and Coach Akey said, that wasn't a lot of fun, but McGuire Bartlett, their starting quarterback, he's been back there for 3 years. He had a very nice game, threw for a touchdown, ran for a touchdown, completed 4 out of 7 passes, which is just a ton of passes for Gothenburg. It's a system in Gothenburg. I call it Hakey ball, and they were able to grind out 356 yards, 298 of it on the ground. And they just kind of keep going that way.
How about the defense for Gothenburg? It seemed like they played pretty well. They pitched a shutout until that final quarter where they allowed 7 points. Again, coming away with a 27-6 victory over Chase County. But the defense, they looked good early on.
Yeah, they only allowed 166 yards to the Longhorns. And they just always play good defense in Gothenburg, it seems like. And that's kind of what makes them go. This should be a really interesting game. I don't think it's going to be a whole lot of points. I think it's going to be just a big old slobber knocker.
You mentioned some injuries. Any word on if those guys might come back this week?
Well, there's still some questions on a few things. We're waiting on Connor Baker, waiting to see what the ruling is on Isaiah Young. Owen Guykin did play in the second half, so they should be getting closer. to full strength.
Well, it's going to be a Dawson County rivalry game coming up on Friday nights. This game should answer some questions for both of these teams. And, of course, you can hear the game on 880 KRVN, 106.9 FM in the Kearney area, 98.5 FM in the Grand Island area. And, of course, all games can be heard online at krvn.com. Second game this week that we'll have on KAMI Country Legends on Friday night is Lexington hitting the road for the first time. They'll be out in eastern Nebraska where they'll take on the Warriors of Schuyler High School, and we'll have that game again on KAMI Country Legends. And for Lexington, it wasn't the start that they wanted. They fell to Crete 33-14 in last week's contest to open up the game, and they did all of that, or I should say Crete did all of that without their offense, at least early on, stepping onto the field. One
of the oddest things I've ever seen. They were up 13-0 before their offense had even touched the ball. A pick six and a fumble in the end zone gave Crete an early lead, dug a hole for Lexington. But I tell you, the Minutemen scored some points eventually. They got some yards. Caleb Carpenter was hurt late, but ended up throwing for 263 yards. They've got some offense if they can, and their defense played very well too.
Now, the one thing, obviously, they're going to have to do better in this week's contest and going into the future is cutting down on the turnovers. When you have 7 turnovers, you're not going to win many games.
No, they hurt themselves. But they have some ability there for sure. They have some skilled players. I thought Alex Ramos played good at running back. Their defense was outstanding against a Crete team that was expected to be very good, especially we talked about Zach Fye. He only threw for 43 yards. So I think that I think Lexington's got a good shot here.
You did mention Alex Ramos. Coach Rowan, talking to him earlier this week, he actually was also very impressed by Ramos as well. He ran for 71 yards in last week's loss again to Crete. You also mentioned Caleb Carpenter, the new quarterback this season. He had a pretty good debut, throwing for 287 yards. He did toss 2 interceptions, but again, the offense did move the football. They just have to limit the turnovers, and this team might be all right.
I think so, and we got to mention Dylan Richmond. I mean, he is the guy that makes this offense go. Made a couple long passes. He's very talented. They just have to do a little bit better job on the offensive line to give those guys some time.
And quickly want to mention a couple of guys on the defense for Lexington who shined in last week's contest. Aaron Salcido flexed his muscle for 11 tackles, while Freddie Velasquez chipped in 10 tackles. Now, their opponent is a team that has struggled for a couple of years recently in Schuyler. They struggled in last week's opener against Nebraska City, falling 35-12, the final score in that one. And their defense really struggled early on, Scott. They allowed 21 points in the first quarter.
Yeah, and so I really think for Lexington, this is a game that they need to win.
Now, for the Warriors, they too struggled to keep the football. They had 3 turnovers in last week's loss to Nebraska City. And Scott, this just might be an instance of, listen, it's week 1. You have some youngsters, you have some new players. It's going to happen. Brand
new coach at Schuyler, and Jason Ankra, the former Husker, and so he's going to bring some new blood and maybe pump in some excitement to that program, and we'll see. But it's not going to happen in a week.
Well, and Coach Ankra, now again the former Husker, knew that this was going to be a work in progress. This is a team that had all of 1 win a season ago. Again, we'll have Lexington and Schuyler on KAMI Country Legends on Friday. Kickoff is set for 7. Again, you can listen to the game on krvn.com as well. And a couple other Week 2 matchups we want to preview here coming up in the area and across the state. Bertrand will take on Amherst. Kearney Catholic will take on Aurora. This should be an intriguing game.
It could be, and it also could be a blowout, to be quite honest. Kearney Catholic played very, very well. Aurora played quite poorly in Week 1. Kearney Catholic's a good team. They may knock it to Aurora.
A couple other Central Nebraska lineups as well. Pleasanton will take on Axtell. Broken Bow is at home for the first time. They will take on Minden. Arapahoe is going on the road to face Elm Creek, while Kennesaw is at home. They will face Overton, and for Overton, who lost to Elm Creek, this is going to be a tough chance for a rebound.
Yeah, they don't want to be 0-2 here, but there's a chance that could happen. It's a good Kennesaw team.
In the Sandhills, it's Mullen hosting Anselmo Myrna, while Northwest is at home against McCook. One game that I thought was interesting out east, and it's a couple of Omaha games, but Scott Catholic is going to play Roncalli Catholic. And these two teams, Roncalli playing well the last several years, and we know how good Scott is.
Scott is just a machine, and it will be a good game. I'll bring some people into that one. I think it'll be interesting, but I'd be surprised if Scott got beat.
In 8-man football, Fullerton will take on Osceola High Plains. Those two teams should be promising and should make a pretty good run in 8-man playoffs later on this year. Wilbur Claytonia will face Sutton over on our sister station, KNEB.com. You can hear Gearing versus Seward. Scottsbluff will take on Hastings. That one will also be heard on KNEB.com. And again, on our sister station out of York, it's Exeter Milligan Friend on the road at Palmyra. That game can be heard on 104.9 MaxCountry.com. And again, a couple of games that will be broadcasting on 880 KRVN is Cozad and Gothenburg, and on Cami Country Legends, it's Lexington and Schuyler. Should be a good week too. Some great matchups throughout the area. Now teams will begin to figure some things out.
Yeah, they always say the old adage is a team improves the most from week 1 to week 2. I hope we did that today.
Don't forget, you can listen to both games we'll have on the air at KRVN.com and by downloading our KRVN app in the Google Play or iTunes Store. And also don't forget to subscribe to our KRVN YouTube channel. He's Scott Foster. I'm Tyler Cavali. This is week 2 of the high school football press box preview.